So, with so much love today, our journey is going to be about diving into Sophia. We talk about the divine Sophia, the Sophianic mother, the Sophianic cosmic mother dragons. We talk about the layers of the body. And so, we're going to gently begin a journey over the next soul circles that we're just going to gently start to dive into what are these energies that we are talking about. And this is going to build upon a little bit of the Afu, as we've worked about with some of the energy of the five subtle bodies, that we're going to take this into an expansive state. And how perfect it is right now as we get to dive into this, that this time and this energy that we are working with, we are already fully within the Lion's Gate time. So just to kind of have an understanding within that, this is already an energy that is amplifying and pouring through for us. So we have the ability to begin to connect to our higher mind, higher heart, which is what the Sirius star is for our sun. And this is really important because we're going to talk about the sun a little bit as to what it is in our reflection. And also just to know that we're only, gosh, I feel it already, but we're only about a day and a half away from the full moon, which is just so radiant. I hope you guys are out there just receiving all of that love that is flowing. So within this, we are going to talk a little bit about what is the etheric body. And I'm going to dance around a little bit with some graphs that I want to share. And I'm actually going to share a graph today from the perspective of Barbara and Brennan. This is an individual. She has been teaching and sharing information on the planet since, oh gosh, the 80s. She is one of the first resources that I remember coming across. And I'm actually going to show you a picture of one of her books. I don't think I have two of them right here, but she does the Hands of Light and the energy bodies. She really goes into detail. So there's a lot of graphs about the aura, about our layers of the body, and a lot of them have been based off of her work. She is such an incredible, I would imagine an indigo type 1 starseed that has really come and shared quite a bit of wisdom with the earth. So I'm going to share the screen. So we're going to look under Barbara Brennan here. I have one of her images on here. I just want to show this. You can find, if you just look it up online, you would easily be able to see it. And I just want to make sure, actually, if one of you actually, Chaylee, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up if you can see this, okay? Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're going to look at this. As we can see, this is the first 7 levels of the human energy field. And we're going to be actually working with the etheric body today. Now, the etheric body is actually the layer of the body that is the one that we observe when we begin to awaken our third eye. And when we start to awaken our third eye, it is the energy that can be observed closest to the aura of the human body. So it is one of the layers within our human energy field, or our aura. We want to kind of look at it as these as all the different layers of our aura. And many times when we think of the layers of our aura, each layer of our aura corresponds to our chakras. And we're going to dive into that just a touch today. And so you could see that the etheric to all the way up to the etheric body template would be like chakra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through the 7 major chakras of our body. So the etheric body is truly the energy body that is primarily the closest to our physical body. It would be connected to our root chakra within our system. But it is the auric layer, or the body within our template, that begins to connect us to all the other higher bodies. So all the other energetic bodies, so it is primary and root in order to connect us to all the different layers in our tree of life. So within this, it is one of the immense fields within our body that is very, very, very connected to our timelines. It's connected to the history and the Akashic library that we hold inside of us. And it is the energetic field of our body that actually holds living life. It is what brings life into the physical body. And we're going to kind of dive into it into a sense that I wanted you to see it from this perspective, but then we're actually going to look that it actually is, it has 7 layers even within itself. So 7 is going to, we're going to see is a very, very important number. And so what I want to do as we look at this energy is just to have you have an awareness. You can see how deeply it is connected really into the almost the elementals within our body. So we'll come back to this. So as we get to connect more with the etheric body, we're going to see that it is really connected to a Luminephrus, I hope I'm saying that right. It's a luminous, but luminephrus energy or light. So within science, in all models of how matter or form is created, it is understood that there has to be some luminephrus form or field that matter can begin to crystallize, or the light can begin to crystallize upon and then begin to actualize into physicality and to form. So within this is actually held within our etheric body. And it's really going to be connecting us to our etheric double. So it is one of the primary ways that we can begin to create our etheric double as we move through the astral realms, which is going to be a different plane. But when we move through our dream planes and through our bilocation and transferring our consciousness, when we become quite adept at doing this, many times what we will do is we will take on our etheric double or our etheric body in order to move around and have a form to move with, but it is very distinctly not our physical body. And what we're going to see is that it is the template right closest connected to our physical body that is actually manifesting through the morphogenetic patterns our physicality, our form, and who we are within this lifetime. Now, the etheric body is connected to not only the Akashic fields, but it's connected to the realm of the nature spirits. So this is where we're going to have a little bit of fun with this today, because it's connected to the nature spirits. It's connected to the elementals. It's connected to the gnomes. It's connected to the sylphs. And the sylphs, again, are who we refer to as the angelics in the clouds in the skies, those beautiful sylphs that flow through. It is connected to the salamanders and the devas. So within this, there are going to be 4 energies that we're going to look at within the etheric body, but let's kind of go through the major parts of it. Now, the etheric body is primarily developed for us between the ages of 7 and 14, and it is considered the time through kind of the initiate's path, where if we observed a child growing between the ages of 7 and 14, we would actually watch and be able to understand at a deeper level what the etheric even is. That all life, again, is built upon it, but yet it is one of the most mysterious fields. It is something that science has no ability to truly understand completely at this time, but yet they know it exists because something has to be there in order for a lot of the scientific processes to work. So it is really connected to our evolution of ascension, being from a base level of consciousness, say within the first dimension, into how we would eventually evolve again through the transmutation of our actual chemicals within our body into becoming an angelic human being again. And what this means is that it would mean that we would be able to activate ourselves back into rainbow body or fire body or back into light. So it is definitely part of our levels of consciousness. So within this, we're going to look at the four kind of more tangible levels of the etheric body within our template. And these are going to be four qualities of it. They're called the four dimensions of it. There's 7 dimensions, but 4 of these dimensions are called warmth, light, sound, and life. Okay. Now, sound is the actual chemical reactions that happen in our body when the synthesis takes place of the different proteins and enzymes and the chemical reactions that create the perpetuation and the movement of energy within the body. Now, the warmth is actually the mutation of one form to another. The warmth is going to be something we're actually going to see primarily through the energy of carbon. So I want to tie in a little bit about shungite again today and its importance and how beautiful it is in our life, because we're going to look at that in this first harmonic universe, that we are primarily carbon and a carbon-based being, that carbon is the base structure upon which all is created upon within this physical reality that we're in. It is the base template. So it could be seen as one of the representations of the divine Sophia, as the body of mother, because it's understood that carbon selflessly gives of itself to be used and transmuted and to be created into all kinds of bindings and forms. And then in the end, once it is, the cycle of life is complete, then the carbon goes back into the earth, right? And so this is going to touch us into a bit of that energy of the divine goddess or the divine mother, and how the cycle of life of birth, life, death, and rebirth happens. And so the birth, the life, and the death cycle, all of these cycles are basically eternal. They're happening in an eternal way, and carbon is going to be the base of this. And I'm not going to go too deep into warmth right now, because it is incredibly scientific, and it's something I'm actually kind of diving into. So we're going to dive into it together as we continue to learn this. But warmth, even from a scientific perspective, when asked, how does a tree grow? How does a plant grow? How is life even possible upon the earth? From the scientific perspective, it happens based upon warmth, the dimension of warmth. And I see some of you nodding, so I know some of you in the medical field probably know this a lot better than I do. So I will definitely do my best to just share something for us to expand upon warmth. But warmth is truly the heat that transforms the structures from one structure into another, into creating. And it is heat is required to actually take the energy out, say, from the etheric. So even from the catharic template all the way down through the different bodies, heat is the transmutation process that begins to bring it down. And that is the same process that will eventually evolve us back up the stair step evolution back out. Because isn't that what we're doing when we think about rainbow body? We're learning how to elevate the heat and the fire and the light, or the spin rate within our body, in order to match the stargates again, so that we can re-emerge back to higher consciousness. So this is probably an entire talk I could do on just those cycles where we could go through it. Even when we were talking about the particle, the particle, and the particum, and the matter, antimatter, it's a chemical it's a kind of a gravitational actual reaction from this 0 point field that is flashing things in and out. And what it is it's aligning gravitational fields of hearts, one heart to another heart and back again. And so it's whatever fulcrum, that balance of polarity, which starts to create the cycle, which is a trinity wave that is a perpetual eternal flame or fire of light. And that is what is creating the ability for the standing scalar waves, or the flash line sequences we talked about, which is our light language from the God source realms, to make its way all the way into this dimension where we are, so that right inside of us, that light has the ability to animate this creation and still hold the consciousness where we can start to attain the initiate's path for going back into that stair step or that ascension process, which means we accelerate ourselves to receive more light, which means more knowledge, which means more wisdom. Okay. So now from this, I'm going to now tap into what this truly is. These are all very other beautiful ways in which we're really referring to what we are doing is learning again how to connect to the divine Sophia. Sophia is wisdom. Another way of connecting, so I just want to see if you guys caught that the more light we hold, the more knowledge we hold, the more wisdom we hold. Wisdom, Sophia is wisdom. The more Sophia, or the wisdom codes and the divine that we hold within us. Another word for wisdom is virtues. So this is going to tie us into the idea of the eightfold path, and that way of holding right speech, right mind, right thought, right action, and all of these things, right? Because these are all the qualities of the divine Sophia. Even within the motherland of Mu, there is a cosmology symbol. And the next time I pull the pictures up, I'll pull that up. And it shows the bands, the ribbons back to the light, back to the sun, representing back to the God source. And these ribbons are representing the 8 paths back. And to me, that is the eightfold path. That is the path of the virtues back. So when we start to connect to the idea of wisdom, we can also begin to understand the idea of the infinite intelligence of the universe. We use this phrase quite a bit. When we think about how does our body function, our body is functioning based on the consciousness of the infinite intelligence of the universe. It's doing what it's doing regardless of where your consciousness is. It's operating. It's doing all the chemical reactions, all of the metabolism, and all of the systems are operating within you, regardless of where your ego is in awareness with that process. So what we start to understand is that we're not, in our ego sense, we're not that important in the whole process of the infinite intelligence of the universe. The planets, the stars, the radiance, every single thing within the tree of life, our catharic tree of life, is operating off of this infinite intelligence of the universe, which is the wisdom, which is Sophia. And now I'm going to just add one more vibrational energy to this, because Sophia is a word that goes hand in hand with Christ or Christ. It's the Christos Sophia. And when we look at this, the Sophia and the Christ, as they merge together, are the ultimate representation of the divine masculine and the divine feminine Hieros Gamos. That once we step down from the 12th dimensional spectrum, Sophia can't be a part of all creation without her male counterpart. And so this is the Christ or the Christ. And so they are synonymous, yet they have a different kind of expressions or qualities or virtues that we could kind of tap into within them. So whether you align to the Christ, and again, I like to say Christ is as a reminder that we are stepping into the Christ or the Etheric body template, which is our liquid plasma light fields, right? So and that as we understand this, it just helps us on this earth plane to not attune it too much to historical timelines that are around the time of Jesus, because that is where usually people resonate with the word Christ. Usually if I say Christ, immediately people think Jesus Christ. And what we're doing is we're dispelling that. We're going to have to just continuously with love delete that, because Christ is literally the fabric of the universe. So there is no timeline. It is eternal. So now as we realize that our path of an initiate is to actually seek divine wisdom within ourselves. But what did we just say divine wisdom is the infinite intelligence of the universe that exists within us, that really is so subtle that the only way to even begin to attune to it would literally be to slow down and be the observer. So now we can see with so much love why the guardians spend so much time telling us to go into a state of mindfulness and to being a neutral, compassionate observer. Because it's the only way to even begin to know the divine within us. And so within this, these beautiful connections to the divine Sophia, they are about the path of reconnecting again to the mother. And I want to just read this. This is going to be one tiny little passage, because when we reconnect to the path of the mother, we are going to see it's going to be the path of the initiations of the 7 pillars. And the 7 pillars are actually the 7 chakras. And I'm going to tie the 7 chakras back to, just so that you can understand, the 7 chakras are actually the 7 nerve ganglias within our body that actually basically control our endocrine system and our glandular system for our hormones, which are the master controllers of our body. Okay. And this is pretty much the foundation for today. And we'll keep repeating this, but what the guides are giving us a gift of is starting to see, how does all of these metaphysical and out there like meditative thoughts, when we tap into the energy and just be like, oh, I feel my higher self, it's like, well, where is it, what is it, and how is it actually interrelating? Because if we are as above so below, that means that inside of you are universes. But how? It's so amorphous to even think about. And so what it starts to tie us into is, how is this spiritual speak, so to speak, or this energetic speak, actually very much physical, chemical, and health related reactions that we're having in our body. This is our medicine we're going back into. We used to do medicine like this. And so for all that have been called into the healing arts or medical fields, this is why the medical fields have not felt quite right. Like there's something almost there. It's because you remember in your heart of hearts that you didn't just deal with the body. It was mind, body, and spirit, because they literally are interconnected. So I'm going to read a passage. This one's from the 3rd Gospel of Sophia by Tyler and Douglas Gabriel. And absolutely beautiful series of books. Again, my books are quite weathered. I go through them a lot. And this one's going to be actually, it's about the initiation of the seventh seal within the introduction. And it says within here, these teachings or self-initiations have been derived from a variety of sources, but have been refined through the devotion to Sophia in all her manifest manifold forms. Her interaction with the aspirant is the closest spiritual helper available for self-development. I want to just repeat that one more way. So her interaction with you and your devotion to beginning to connect to her wisdom, this infinite intelligence that exists within you, is the closest spiritual helper that is available to you for your spiritual development. Sophia even mitigates our relationship with our own guardian angel, with the archangels, and with the Holy Spirit. Sophia, as the daughter, is the great avatar or the bodhisattva. Now, the representation of the bodhisattva perspective of the divine Sophia is Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is her expression of her bodhisattvic qualities or virtues. And this great avatar is the perfect archetypal example for humanity to emulate. Sophia is an initiate who has finished the path and turned around and come back to help the rest of humanity. So I wanted to really kind of step into this, and I will just read this one last thing. I've read this quote before from them, but it says, once the aspirant has stepped across the threshold and embraces the mysteries of the seventh seal, this is the place where there is no turning back. Death becomes a familiar companion. And so this is going to be key for us, especially as we get to dive into the journey of the legacy of the soul, which I do have a date posted for that workshop. I am going to officially announce it, but this is going to be our journey into understanding our path of life, death, rebirth. So the eternal nature of the soul and the legacy that we weave through time, space, and dimensions like a tapestry, and how we be that is really truly in some ways this evolution of expanding beyond any fear of death, because we become fully and completely aware of our eternal nature. So we acknowledge our life, death, and rebirth that happens not only metaphorically through our ascension process, the death of old aspects and old habits and old egoic patterns, and the rebirth that we keep emulating into higher mind perspectives. And that was on page 19 of the introduction. So there's not an actual page number for the book. It's just part of the introduction under the section called Initiation and the Seventh Seal. So love these books so much. So now as we continue on with this, I want to now actually read a little something from Barbara Brennan's book, Hands of Light. And this one's absolutely, they're just such a great resource. I haven't picked these up in a while, but they're a beautiful one to just kind of go back into. And I just feel like there's so much that I've probably missed the first time going around through them years ago. And this one is going to be from page 42 on the 7 layers and the auric field. And I wanted to just read this because this is going to give another language to how we've talked about standing scalar waves or our flash line sequences that are our light language that is the emanation from the eternal God source fields, and how they are emanating through us through our auric layers into our body. She says, my observations of the aura revealed to me an interesting dualistic field pattern. Every other layer of the field is highly structured, like standing waves of light patterns, while the layers in between appear to be composed of colored fluids in constant motion. These fluids flow through the form set by the shimmering standing light waves. The direction of flow is somewhat governed by these standing light forms, since the fluid flows along the standing lines of light, and the standing forms of light are themselves scintillating, as they are composed of strings of many tiny, rapidly blinking lights, each blinking at a different rate. These standing light lines appear to have many tiny charges moving along them. So she actually lights out very, very beautifully here how we are basically a standing form, but it's the light. So one of the great examples we have in this reality is televisions are basically pixels that are just flashing at different levels to create images. But another thing that works like that is kind of like those lit up billboards that flash like different pictures and lights and things. All it is that the lights are turning on and off at different levels in order to create images and appearances for us to relate to, so they actually look solid, but they're not. And this is also going to be very important. So we've talked a bit about, there's the Earth template, there is the Tauran in the second harmonic universe Earth template, and then there's the Gaian Earth in the third harmonic universe Earth template. And these correlate to 3, 5, and 7. Now, why do we say we exist in this energetic field, right? Well, the third is what's holding the structure of form. And then we skip a layer because the fourth is basically going to be the astral plane, or the plane of our heart. And so the astral plane, we know, is flowing through thoughts. It's fluid. She just said it's solid fluid. And the solidarity changes as it moves through, of course, because it's different chemical components within the Tauran Earth timeline in the second harmonic universe. It's more of a silica base. And I'm going to let you guys know this is something amazing. When we are first born, we are primarily silica. And as we age, calcium begins to harden us into this reality, which eventually becomes our process of the death process. But if we actually begin to move up in dimensions, we become silica bodies again. So in the Tauran timeline, why were we holding rainbow bodies, Lemurian timelines, light bodies? Our body wasn't calcium. It was silica. So we weren't in the carbon template. We were in the silica-based template, which is more in alignment to holding crystalline light, or crystal templates and signatures. So now as we get to kind of understand this, we can see that in the fifth dimension, we see fifth dimensional Earth, and then 7D Earth is the Gaian Earth timeline, which also has a physicality to it, but each of them become lighter and lighter and lighter. So now as we kind of attune to that, we are going to just kind of continue on. There's a couple more things I want to say, and then we're just going to meditate a little bit on this, because the whole idea was, how do we begin to attune and to connect to or see the etheric layer? Because the etheric layer, for those that do intuitive medicine, energy healing, scanning people's bodies, this is basically what we're scanning through. In a lot of ways, we're looking to the etheric template of the body to see what's potentially off or out of alignment. So now that is a little bit of a roundabout way. We did go through, again, that the etheric layer, the four that we can relate to, the 4 dimensions of it, We're warmth, light, sound, and life. Okay. Now, light is actually going to be connected to our thoughts, our imagination, to what we can begin to imagine. And then life is how it animates within this. Now, the fifth connection to this is actually a little bit more subtle within, because it does connect us to now the Akasha. The fifth layer of our etheric is going to be the Akasha, or the Akashic libraries, or the memories. And it is from these first five that is kind of considered what we would think of the five-pointed star. So this is going to connect us to when we see the pentagram as a sacred symbol. It connects us to the phi ratio. It connects us to the Fibonacci sequence. Okay. So when we see the harmonics of Venus, the sun, and Earth in their rotational spin, it creates a five-pointed star. Our human body, when it's in the anatomical position, is a five-pointed star. So I will imagine, if you were to look at, say, one of Da Vinci's drawings of the human as a five-pointed star, you're going to see that the energy flows from the head to the left foot to the right hand to the left hand to the right foot, and then back up to the head. So you would just draw it as if you were drawing that star. So that is kind of the pattern of energy, how this kind of moves through as we begin to start to see ourselves as the sacred geometry. Now, the interesting thing about this is that we can see ourselves locked in a phi ratio. The Fibonacci sequence, we see it everywhere. It is one of the things that so many movies have been done about the mysteries of nature, and look at the sacred geometry of the universe. But the phi ratio is finite, not infinite. Finite. It means that when we are in the phi ratio, when we are in this Fibonacci sequence, we are going to experience life, death, and rebirth. Death and rebirth, right? Because it's cyclical in that nature. Now, it's a spiral of cyclical nature. Now, the spirit is eternal within it, but the form cannot maintain the living light eternal energy. But remember, there's 7 layers to the etheric body, but we mainly operate with the 5. It takes the path of the initiate to plug in the final 2 layers that actually now pull us out of the finite nature into our eternal nature. Now, what this eternal nature is that it attaches us to the 6th and 7th layers of our etheric body, which are called unfallen sound and unfallen life. What they mean by unfallen is that they have not stepped into polarity. They are going to be more connected to the Catharic template. And so unfallen sound is going to be the tree of knowledge. This is where we start to begin to tap into the wisdom. We start to begin to become one and understand our movement with the divine Sophia. The unfallen life is the tree of life. And the tree of life is the eternal light. It is the eternal life flame. It would be the plugging back into the 12th sphere. And really us kind of evolving back into an angelic form. So truly, when we start to tap into unfallen sound, this is something we're practicing as far as beginning to even become attuned to the sensitivity of nature around us. But that it is something that really, through the Akashic field, we become open to what is referred to as unfallen sound, which is connected to our brow chakra. And the throat chakra is really in many ways connected to the Akashic manifestation planes, templates, and our speech and how we connect to that. But the brow chakra, so think about our third eye, is actually when it starts to truly awaken, we become adept to something referred to as the symphony of the spheres. And the symphony of the spheres is when we begin to start to hear the planets inside of us. Now, the planets are going to be correlating primarily from Saturn down within the astrological position, also including the sun, which is connected to our heart, and the moon. And as we begin to realize this, we can realize, okay, and I'm not going to go, we'll dance into this a little bit more as we go. But what I want to kind of step into is our heart correlates to the sun. When we begin to hear the music of the spheres, we begin to hear the archetypes. We begin to hear the Elohim. We begin to hear the higher forces of creation emanating through us. And we understand this too, that all of our organs have their own sound. And when we've talked about sound healing, how balancing the frequencies within your organs to the frequency that they need to harmonize as will assist them in actually healing again. Sound can heal the body. So when we begin to connect to these, we start to feel our larger place within the cosmos. We start to become one and harmonize and sing our heart song with the cosmos. Now, as we begin to emanate this, if and when we evolve through this path to begin to even open up into the seventh one, would mean our full reemergence back into our angelic template, our full reemergence back into a light body. So, you know, it is the seventh layer is the path we aspire to. But remember that even in the layers of the subtle body, or through the bodies of the Afu through Sekhmet, the final or the fifth body was the body layer of the divine, of the gods. And so this was the realm of full real. It's basically another way of saying the realm of full realization. So as we get to connect to this energy, why do the planets actually matter? And as we look at this, the heart is the sun. I want to tie this in. Our sun has a binary connection to the higher mind. It's interesting that the connection that the sun has to the Sirius star is actually considered the higher mind, not the higher heart. Very interesting. And I know we talk about the 8th Stargate within Orion as the higher heart, and it is. But what we want to actually look at as the ultimate higher heart of our sun is actually Aramatena, the 12th Stargate in Lyra, which is plugging us into the Aurora Earth template within our Andromedan Mother Galaxy. So what I really want to just kind of show is that we have from the Trinity Wave within the Lyran constellation, our birthing place from where we've come, from where the God Source lights have stepped down, that as they stepped down, their first emanation was into the Rishis. What did we call the Rishis? The suns. The luminary bodies, the suns, the spheres, the absolute spheres. So we could actually acknowledge that our sun is one of these Rishic representations. And that in order for us to be incarnated in Earth in this first harmonic universe, we would have had to have passed through the Stargate of the sun. So this is again why I say it doesn't matter what starseed race we are. We've all had to pass through the same door to get here. So we made an agreement. So there's actually a massive, beautiful Akashic library within the core of the sun, if you ever go there to connect to them. And it's where you begin to find your universal Akashic library and templates and other body self. So it's really through the Sun Stargate that we can begin to step out to connect to our other connections. Now, as we connect to this energy of the sun, it is said through the theosophical perspectives that it is from the sun, which is also referred to as Christ. Just let's tie this in. So the sun is also referred to as Christ. And that it is from Christ that we all have any form of existence. And that as the energy of the Christ came out of the sun, it emanated as the original rays of the 7 Elohim. Now, the original 7 Elohim, we see this as the Karaya Sa Ta Allah, the Kristalla. We see this as the 7 original sound tones or color tones. So the Elohim are the different characteristics and representations. That's truly what angelics are. They're characteristics and representations of the character of the all. But they hold different bands of those characteristics. Now, we could see this again as a connection of a metaphoric template of from when we went through the bands of the step down process into creating the human form. We talked about the Elohai and the Seraphi that emanated from the tri-founder or the Yanas, God source or God seeds. So this is going to be basically that. But remember, the Elohai or the Elohim order was the one that was appointed. That Lyran Elohim order was the one that was appointed through the blue ray to begin to caretake the stations of identity. These beings are the eternal beings. And it is from them, there's an interesting perspective, because it is from them that we understand that throughout time and history in the galactic timelines, that a lot of the Elohim began to become adverse to the human Terranusium project. And the reason why is because they were observing a human form that was being embedded with more strands of the God source code in the lower realms that would have basically made them the potential to be gods. And that if these humans got their stuff together, they would be able to transverse the realms of the Elohim, but actually have more emotions available to them, because they wouldn't be segmented aspects of the creator, but they would be potential whole aspects of the creator. So truly an advanced potential. That is what we are. We are an advanced potential. And I'm going to heavily use the word potential. But the reason that the Elohim, many of them began to want to shut down the human project was because they saw that the emotional volatility within the form was actually very, very dangerous. That if it was not utilized correctly, it causes massive destruction. And yes, it does. Our very emotions can cause us to love someone and then turn around and say something so hateful and hurtful to them that we cut them and wound them for life, right? So our emotions, when they are not run by the Sophianic light streams of wisdom and virtues, our emotions are deadly, deadly weapons. And this is part of a dynamic of the history of, some of the viewpoint of the fallen angelics beginning to take an opposed view. to this project. So there's always different sides to the story, right? And that's what we're kind of looking at with this. But now as we look at this, these Elohim then again further kind of stepped into archetypal manifestations are represented through our planets. Now, one thing I want to say is this is something that we dance around quite a bit, is the idea that the planetary bodies are just larger, are a representation of our organs and are a representation of larger aspects of who we are, but they hold archetypal kind of conditioning for us. They are what help crystallize our mental and our psychological patterns as we embody into a human body. And that is why they kind of seem to control us until we learn to get mature enough to begin to take our own responsibility of that control for ourselves. And so this is truly to be an initiate and advanced on the path. What we are doing is we come in and initially we're like, oh, well, I'm a Leo, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Sagittarius, I am a Cancer, I'm an Aquarius, right? We come in fragmented. And then we start learning our polarities. We're like, oh, well, if I'm an Aquarian, then I'm also a Leo. Oh, well, if I'm a Virgo, then I'm also a Pisces. If I'm a Capricorn, then I'm also a Cancer, and vice versa on all of these. And so we start to learn our polarities and we start to learn to balance that which is out of order. And eventually then we learn that, oh, wait a minute, it's a wheel. And we begin to learn that it's the karmic wheel, if you will, because any places that we're out of our balance, then we are expressing ourselves kind of bound to the control of however that archetype is holding us within the system. And then we start to learn to take our evolution to the place where we step off the karmic wheel, or we become whole within our astrological influences, to where we step out of the influence of the spheres because we've harmonized with them and that we've become one with them. And then we begin to reemerge back through the heart and to the sun, which leads us back to Era Matena. So just the same way that the earth has higher body templates in Tara and in Gaia, so does the sun. And the higher body template is actually in Lyra. And that's really, what are we aligning to again? The Christ, the crystalline energy within. And that is the beauty of that. And so now the last thing I'm just going to say for this, because I know this is, it's a lot, but it's still hopefully flowing through. That as we begin to kind of look at this, that one of the things we're going to want to start embodying through our breath, through our meditations, through our actions, is that we are now moving out of the water of the breath, so to speak, but we want to move into the fire breath. What we are emanating again is the heat, the fire. And this can be done through say types of yoga that actually bring heat or fire to the breath, fire to the body, whether it's dance like Sufi dance, Gurdjieff dancing, light language, symbologies in dancing. I'm excited to touch into that with you guys in a future time. Even how the movements of how our arms are when we dance and when we spin is a physical representation of what's happening to the angelic languages within us, and how we can actually rewrite our DNA language through these dances. And that's really what the whole the Sufis and say Gurdjieff and all of that, what they were doing was dancing light language or angelic language. And so as we begin to do this, what we are doing is we are first activating the fire within our heart. And when the fire begins to light within our heart, we actually get a new Kundalini channel within our body, that is not right in the same one where the meridians of our base 7 chakras is, but it actually builds one kind of like right beside it, like in front or behind it. And when that activates, that is the true Kundalini fire that activates within, that moves through the heart up into the throat. So it begins to start to open up within the throat, that place of the tree of knowledge. It starts to begin to truly open up again our Sophianic wisdom within us. And as that begins to open, then it moves into the crown. And the crown is where our tree of life is, where our connection to our angelic form, and that ascendance moves through us. And as this begins to activate, this actually is going to correspond to our glands. And we'll touch in, this is just giving hints of where we're going. It's going to touch into our glands. And so through our throat begins to really touch into the in-between of the heart and the throat. Again, is that thymus, and as that activates what it's doing, the thyroid, and what it's doing, it's regulating our metabolism. And so it starts to regulate our glands. And then as it begins to move up again, what are we activating in our third eye? Is now we are activating that serum in there, that crisp fluid and liquid light that begins to drip down, that illumes the crown and is what is key for opening the crown of our consciousness. So these are going to be ways in which we begin to tap into. But that one of the things that comes through as a beautiful meditation for us to just contemplate and think about, and this is going to be kind of our final, and I'm going to do this a little bit as a meditation for us, is to remember again that the etheric level, the only way for us to know it is to begin to slow down. We have to start to listen. And it's truly something that's really understood through larger cycles of life. Watching your garden grow through seasons, watching children grow, watching cycles of nature, watching life, death, rebirth cycles. And as we begin to tap into this, this is where it softens us to begin to acknowledge that the etheric template has created our physical body. It's connected again to the sylphs, the devas, the angelics. It's connected to the elementals, the gnomes, the woodland beings, the fairies. All of these elemental beings, there's crystalline beings, all of these beings are consciousness beings of the body of Earth Mother. And they are the representation of the platonic solids of what we are created from in some way. And in order for us to have a living body, they sacrifice of themselves. This etheric realm crystallizes in order for our body to have solid form and structure. And this is something that we would have to really watch through the development of a fetus. That at the very beginning stages, we are watching two cells start to go through these chemical responses. It's the heat, it's the light, right? It's all of those elements beginning to happen within there. And as the chemical responses continue to expand, they crystallize, if you will, into the form, and the form begins to take shape based on the morphogenetic template or set of instructions that are being emanated out of the DNA. And so these are all basically the etheric solidifying into beginning to create our body. And this is why our body is seen as a gift from Divine Sophia. It's seen as a gift from the Mother. It's seen as something we are lent or we get to borrow. And that's why it's our temple, because we get to learn how to work with it within this way. Now, within this, as we begin to kind of understand this a little bit more, and I'm trying to see where I wrote this down right here. this then begins to activate something within our DNA, which also has 7 layers into it. And this is where we'll go next time a little bit more, because I want to talk about the Queen of the Nagas and how she represents our pineal gland and our sacred Kundalini. But within the sacred layers of our DNA, we can see again one more representation or step down of the 7. And that 7 is held within the 4 first base, which is going to be carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. And as these begin to move, the next 2 layers that move within there are the 2 phosphorus layers of sugar molecules for binding. And these sugar phosphorus bands are actually the bands that actually bind. They begin to create the stickier to bind. And I cannot wait to dive into this a little bit more with you guys, because this is something that I feel is really key, why sugar is such a used addictive substance upon the planet, because it's truly throwing off our sacred activation of our DNA. And that within that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 was again carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. 5 and 6 are the 2 phosphorus sugar bands. And then 7 again is that amorphous, or that spirit, or that untouchable or unknowable energy that animates within us. So what I will say is that we know that we are as above, so below. So within our DNA and within these chemical reactions within us, this is the activation of our connection to the etheric levels, the subtle levels. And as we evolve, it reflects around us in who we are. And that as we develop our virtues, this becomes the foundation of how this light language can flow through our expression of our life. And I'm going to share one last screen here, because I want to just show that we are, oh, actually I did it over here, that we are, our entire solar system is a helix of DNA. And I don't know if I can make this any bigger. Our entire, so if you were to actually just, I just Googled, what did I Google up here? A GIF of planets orbiting the sun. I have this somewhere, but I just couldn't find it very quickly. That if you were to actually look down the center of the sun, so if we were actually on this golden strand looking at it and we were seeing all the planets orbit it, it would be creating a helix. It would be another representation of the DNA that is flowing through us. And this is actually how it is happening right within our body. Now, as we even look at this, there is one last thing that we will be touching into in a future energy, and this is going to show that our angelic, this is actually from the book Emerald Covenant by Ashiana Dean, but I wanted to just tie this in because she actually really talked into the purpose of the sugar phosphate blueprint, which I thought was very fascinating. And she's saying that the angelic human DNA template and the substrand DNA matrix contains the scalar grid blueprints for the 12 double helix DNA strands, not the 12 single strands as the Anunnaki teachings will intentionally mislead us to. So it is 6 sets of 12 or of 2 strands each. But what is most important to understand here, that in its natural state, one heli would carry the sugar phosphate blueprint inherited from the mother lineage genetic code, and the other would carry the sugar phosphate blueprint from the father genetic code, creating a magnetic particle that would connect to the antiparticle. So the mother is magnetic, the father is electric or anti. And these two would then create the chemical DNA ladder within on this level. But what she goes on to show, and we'll dive into this at a deeper time, is that a lot of the genetic manipulation that has happened upon the planet has been about reversing the polarization where the male and the females, the sugar phosphates have actually created a reversal in how the mother and the father goes. So we actually have been pulling more from the father than the mother, which is completely wrong. It's offset the balance within there. So this again is to kind of show, it's like, oh, how does this genetic modification and all of these things kind of work? It's actually happening right within the chemistry. So what we're really doing by resetting through going these ascension processes is allowing ourselves to begin to reset things on a very chemical level in our body so that we reattune again to the mother's genetic lineage. It was always known that the mother line carried the sacred bloodline blueprint. But that's been thrown off. And so we're resetting that again so we can have that. And so we can basically do whatever work that we get to heal the mother wound within. But as we do this, the last thing is I'm going to invite all of us to just take a moment and take all this knowledge and just toss it out for a moment. And come back into your body with a gentleness, a softness, a love that you get to on a daily basis make your own declaration of calling out to the divine Sophia and making that invitation or that ask or that request for her to guide you, for you to allow your awareness to be more aware of how she flows through you. But that one of the main ways that we also carry our Akashic library through us is that we begin to sense and feel through the stillness that our body is comprised of many, many, many beings, many different consciousnesses, many different beings exist right inside of us because we are comprised of the etheric, and the etheric is connected to the elementals, the devas, the angelics. It is connected to all of these divine conscious templates and beings. And their stories live right inside of us. And in so many ways, as we begin to clean up our temple, our body, we are beginning to have an awareness of the sacred space that we share as a collective consciousness. That there is elements of the divine that gave of themselves in order to be crystallized into form in the standing scalar waves of your body so that you could have a body in this lifetime. Your body is primarily created of conscious beings. And that when we begin to slow down with gratitude, we can begin to awaken our heart to listen, to hear their song, to hear the sound tones, to hear the messages, to start to have the virtues that embody reverence for our temple. And we gently begin to realize that the path to ascension is inward. And that everything you seek is right inside of you. But with so much love to the guides and to the guardians, we say thank you so much for holding the sacred place and space for this conversation today. And that with so much love, we awaken our hearts to hear the sound tone of Sophia, that we can align our very own heart song to be in the symphony that embraces the love of the Christos Sophia within. With so much love, I invite each and every one of you to take a little time, maybe today and in the next days, and hopefully for the rest of our time in this body, to listen more and more and more and more to the subtleties of nature, to the sounds of the divine. And just to remember that you are a part of that symphony and that you are loved. Whew, with so much love to all of you, I say thank you so much for letting me share this with you.